Hi everyone, how are you all? I'm sure you all are good at your places. Look, you all are muted, but that doesn't mean your doubts won't be addressed. They will be addressed definitely, because your doubts are of paramount importance, are they? And I'm not gonna compromise on your doubts for the sake of smoothness of my class, not at all. Doubts will be clear, and you have got an option in the form of chat box through which you can text me and even ask me to unmute you. I'll do that to clear your doubts. All right. Look, this class will be around 20 to 25 minutes, and we'll try to get most out of this time. All right. And I'm sure you've got all the material that I've been sending you for many days now. And this class is going to give you a real classroom experience, right? And this is what e-learning is all about, right? Electronic learning, right? I prepared a PPT for all of you to give you best understanding, to give you comprehensive understanding of all the concepts. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy this class, definitely. Okay. And I'm going to start fresh, right from chapter number 2, the demographic structure of Indian society. And you know why? It is just because of the reason that you all are in 12th standard. So we can't afford to miss anything. Can we? No, we can't. Because anything can come from anywhere, from your textbook. As far as CBSE board exams are concerned, or 12 CBSE board exams are concerned. So anything can come, right? So we can't afford to miss anything. All right. So before I start this class, or before I start this chapter, I just want to give you a kind of an outline so that you can get a little bit of understanding that how we're going to start and what are those things that we're going to cover under this particular chapter. All right. The name of this particular chapter is the demographic structure of Indian society. When I say demographic structure of Indian society, demographic structure is something that is related to population, right? And demography is a word that is what study of population is all about, right? So demographic structure of Indian society means we're going to study the population, composition of population, right? And we're going to also understand common concepts, which we can also call them indicators. So demography, how this word came, types of demography, common indicators or concepts regarding demography. Then we're going to do the demographic theory of transition. And in case if we'll have more time, then we'll do some more topics also. So I'm going to share my PPT with all of you. And I would recommend you to, change the mode of your smartphone from portrait to landscape like this, because from this view you're going to get greater viewing and larger viewing of the PPT that I'm going to share with you. All right, so now I'm going to share my PPT with all of you, and remember that there is no need to worry about writing or thinking about missing anything, because right after this class I'm going to share the video as well as my PPT in the group, and then you can have ample time to write whatever important things you can write from that PPT. Then you can note down the key points from the PPT. Okay, so now I'm going to share the PPT, right? So hurry up, text me. Can you see the PPT on your screens? Text me. If you can see PPT on your screens, then text me. Okay, so I think everyone of you can see the PPT. That is open right on my screen and on your screens as well. Okay, so now we'll start. We'll start with this PPT. Okay, so chapter number second, the demographic structure of Indian society. All right. Now, obviously, we want to know what is demography. Demography is the systematic study of the population of a country, area, community, etc. Right? When we study population, or when we study the composition of population, or when we study the human beings in the form of population, that is what demography is all about. So, demography is the systematic study of a particular area, and this particular word demography has been derived from two Greek words. One is demos and second one is graphin. Demos means people and graphin means describe. So description of people is what demography is all about, right? Then we're going to understand the two types of demography. Now, these two types are very important because it is generally asked in the exams that, what's the difference between formal demography and social demography. So it's important for us to understand formal demography and social demography, both the demographies, right? So formal demography, it is the statistical analysis of population, right? That is total population, number of males, number of females, number of youth, working population, rural and urban population, and all that. So it is all about collecting data, right? It is of quantitative nature. So when we collect data, or when our data is in quantified form, then it is what formal demography is all about. It mostly deals with the measurement of numbers, and then it does analysis, which means it's all about quantification of data. It has nothing to do to know about the reasons, about the consequences that's going to happen due to the changes in the demography. So it's important to understand that formal demography is all about the measurement of population, and through which we come to know about the total population, number of males, number of females, number of youth, working population, non-working populations, and something like that. And all these things come under formal demography. But on the other hand, when we study or when we understand social demography, then it is something that deals with birth rate, death rate, sex ratio, migration, etc. that happens in a society. And that we not only study about these birth rate, death rate, migration, sex ratio, etc., but we also try to understand the causes. We also try to understand the consequences that are going to come due to the changes in these things, right? So we try to understand things in the sociological perspective. We try to understand the reasons. We try to understand the consequences, that how these changes are going to affect us, right? So it is not only about quantitative of data, it is about qualitative of data as well. So it's a broader concept. It includes both the things, quantity of data as well and qualitative of data as well. So it actually entails both the things, right? It's a broader concept as we compare this particular concept to formal demography. So I'm sure now you have understood, or you have got the idea that what is formal demography and what is social demography is all about, right? So now we're gonna understand the emergence of demography, and then we're gonna also understand emergence of sociology as well. Look, we are studying the demographic structure of Indian society. And I think it's important for us to know that how demography word has come in, or how it emerged, right? And ultimately, the emergence of demography ultimately gave the way to the emergence of sociology as well. So emergence of demography and emergence of sociology are two concepts that are interrelated. All right. So they are interrelated. Okay. So these both concepts are interrelated. But before we understand the emergence of sociology, I think it's important for us to understand the emergence of demography as well. So the demography or the systematic study of population. I know now you know that it's a systematic, study of population. Actually, this word demography came right in the later half of the 18th century, somewhere in uh, 1790s and post 1790s session. It came around that region. And why it came? Because European countries, I'm talking about European countries like Spain, Portugal, your France, Britain, UK, and all those countries that are there in Europe, the European region, or you can say that European countries, these all countries were developing, right? And there were two processes. There were two processes that were actually coming during that particular time. First process that was coming was formation of nation state, right? So the territories were being set up, and countries were, becoming aware of their territories. So there was a consciousness of keeping a particular territory. So all the countries were trying to formulate their territories, and them converting their territories into states. So the formation of nation state was actually going on, and it was the principal form of political organization. So politics was actually coming at that particular time, number one reason. And second reason, obviously when a state is set up, a state or a government always needs some data, because they want to implement certain policies, they want to give different schemes to their population. So for that they need data. And data, who's going to provide that data? Obviously demography is what going to provide them data. So the role of demography was being felt at that particular time. So the two processes, number one, your European states were becoming conscious of making their territories, and second, they needed obviously data to implement their policies. So these were the two factors due to which there was emergence of demography. Then ultimately, when we collect some data, we want to study them a little bit in the deep manner. So who is going to give that deep perspective or deep study of these population? Obviously sociology. Sociology is the study of society. We all know that. So the study of demography, or its further implication is always going to be provided by sociology, right? So emergence of demography and emergence of sociology are the two interrelated concepts that came at the same time, I would say. And I'm not saying that emergence of demography was the only way that gave way to the emergence of sociology, but I would definitely say it was one of the way that gave emergence of sociology, right? And look, I've written the same thing, that demography is the field that is of special importance to sociology. And remember that sociology gives a lot of credit. This particular subject gives a lot of credit to demography, because due to demography, there was emergence of sociology. So now I'm sure you have understood the emergence of demography and emergence of sociology as well. Okay. So it's history of census, right? So right after the formation of a nation state, that this particular process was actually happening in the European countries, they also started doing census. And we know that census is something that is related to demography, isn't it? So they started conducting census. Look at that, what is written here. The American census of 1790 was probably the first modern census. So you can assume from here that American census was it was conducted in 1970. So sociology also started coming after that, right? So emergence of demography is something that is related to emergence of sociology, right? So this is what I wanted to discuss with all of you in terms of what is demography, and two types of demography, and then little bit history of census, then obviously emergence of demography and emergence of sociology. So this was a kind of I would say an outline that I wanted to discuss with you. I'm sure it has given you a little bit of idea about this chapter. It was important for me to discuss it initially, so I really felt it to discuss with all of you. Now we're gonna do what we're gonna do after this is that we're gonna understand the concepts of population, or I can say that we're gonna understand the indicators of population. So indicators, whether you call it, whether you call the concepts or indicators, they are one and the same thing. So now we're gonna uh, understand the concepts or indicators of population, right? So now we're going to study the birth rate, we're going to study death rate, we're going to study your age structure, we're going to study sex ratio, we're going to study, many are many are there in terms of concepts and indicators of population. So we're going to start with journal birth rate. Now what is journal birth rate, right? Journal birth rate is something that is related to live births. Now when I say live birth, it means that the children that survive after their birth, the children that survive after their birth are called as live births. Many children take birth, but unfortunately some of them, don't survive, but many of them survive also. The children that survive are come, they actually come under your live births. So we can understand journal birth rate right here. So as you can see on your screen, that journal birth rate, or simply you can also call it birth rate. So birth rate is the number of live born children. So here live born children are those children, you know, that that get survival after the birth. So journal birth rate is the number of live born children compared to the total population number, right? And how we calculate this? We calculate this with this formula. So how we gonna find the journal birth rate? We're gonna keep number of live birth, means number of children who get survival. We're gonna keep it, as a numerator, and we're gonna divide it with population number. It can be your 1,000 population, it can be 10,000, it can be 1 lakh, but mostly we take 1,000 population. So we always calculate journal birth rate with the comparison of live born with the 1,000 population. As you can see this, you can see here. So look at that, look at my cursor where it is going. So we always calculate birth rate by comparing it with 1,000 person. So remember that there is a population of 1,000 person, right? And out of these 1,000 person, how many children are getting birth is what journal birth rate is all about, right? So this is what journal birth rate is all about. Okay, then similarly death rate. Okay, so look at that, look on your screen. So it's death rate, right? So here we're going to keep total number of deaths upon 1,000 people. So out of 1,000 people, how many children are not surviving is what death rate is all about. So total number of your deaths upon 1,000 people is what death rate is all about. It's not something that is different from birth rate. The only difference is that here we are talking about death rate. So birth rate and death rate, I'm sure it is clear to you now. Okay. And look, now we're going to understand the third common indicator or third concept of population growth. We're going to understand the third concept of population, that is general fertility rate. You know, after birth rate and death rate, we're going to understand general fertility rate. Now, why we need to understand general fertility rate? Look, out of 1,000 population, everyone is not going to give birth to children. Obviously, women are the one that are going to give birth to the population. So somewhere here, in general fertility rate, we'll try to understand or we'll try to figure out that in 1,000 how many female are there, you know, and we'll try to collect those female in the form of 1,000, right? So now we're going to understand general fertility rate, in which we're going to do comparison of, you know, newborn children with the 1,000 women, right? So look at that. So general fertility rate is the number of live born children in relation to the number of women of fertile age. Now remember that here we are considering women who are having age from 15 to 49, right? So all those women who belongs to this age group are the ones that we are going to consider in this 1,000 women ratio, right? So general fertility rate shows the number of live born children on 1,000 women. So this is what general fertility rate is all about, right? Here we don't include entire population. Here we're gonna ignore the sex, means we're gonna ignore males, and we're gonna include female, that is women. So this is what general fertility rate is all about. Now specific fertility rate. So what was happening in general fertility rate? We were including all the women right from 15 years of age up to 49 years of age. But when we talk about specific fertility rate, then we're going to calculate, you know, the fertility of a particular woman. Then we're gonna, let me see, so it's 11:46. We have around 10 minutes more, you know, for this class. Okay, but we'll try to, you know, make more sort of this class. So after discussing birth rate, then discussing death rate, then we also discuss general fertility rate. Now we're going to understand specific fertility rate. When we talk about specific fertility rate, here we are not going to include all the women from 15 years of age up to your 49 years of age. We are not going to include all those women. Here we're going to calculate the specific fertility rate, where we're going to understand that if a woman is of 25 years of age, then so here we're going to understand if a woman is of 25 years of age, we're going to understand, you know, the fertility of a woman who is of 25 years of age. So we're going to understand specific fertility rate, that a woman who is of 25 years of age or a woman who is of 30 years of age, you know, what is their fertility rate? How many children a particular woman or a particular woman of specific age can, you know, give birth to? How many children? So we're going to understand that particular aspect in this specific fertility rate. All right. So now you can see the definition, right? It's right here. Okay. So look at that. Here we're gonna study the specific fertility rate. Specific fertility rate is the relation between the number of live born children birthed by a mother of specific age. So I was telling you, here we're gonna calculate specific age. You know, the fertility that is specific age of women can, you know, have. We're gonna understand that. So it can be understood in terms of group, right? Right from 15 to 19. It can be understood from 20 to 24, 45 to 49. So we can include groups also, and we can do specifically, we can understand the specific fertility of a woman also. So specific fertility is something that is related to total fertility. That is our next concept. So total fertility rate is nothing, but it is just the average number of children a woman will have throughout her childbearing childbearing years. Now the childbearing years are right from 15 to 49. So we know that childbearing years are from the 15 years of age up to 49 years of age. Okay, so we can understand that how many children a particular woman can born through his entire life of childbearing years, right? We can understand that. So this is what our uh, total fertility rate is all about. I'm sure now you have understood that what is birth rate, what is death rate, and what is fertility rate, and also what is total fertility rate, right? So we're gonna shift to the next concept, the fifth concept, right? So now we're gonna understand infant mortality rate. Now remember that mortality is something that is related to death. So when we say infant mortality rate, then it's IMR. We're gonna understand the number of infants that's per 1,000 live births in a year. So if 1,000 births have taken place, then out of it, how many of children have died? We're going to understand that in infant mortality rate. And this is what infant mortality rate is all about. Then we're going to understand the next concept, that is in the form of maternal mortality rate. So I've already told you that maternal mortality is something that is related to death, right? So when we understand maternal mortality rate, then we're going to understand the death of women, you know, that takes place during pregnancy or even sometimes after pregnancy, right? So what is maternal mortality rate? Maternal mortality rate is the death of women during pregnancy, and during pregnancy or during childbirth up to 42 days after the delivery or abortion. Okay, so sometimes what happens, mother who has given birth to a child, may due to pregnancy complications, you know can you know can reach her death. So this can happen, and it happens at times. So we calculate all these things through maternal mortality rate. Okay, so it's MMR, it's MMR, maternal mortality rate. Now we're going to understand next concept of population, that is our, it is sex ratio. Now sex ratio, how we're going to calculate sex ratio? We're going to understand how many females are there in comparison to 1,000 males, right? So number of females per 1,000 males in a population is what your sex ratio is all about, right? But unfortunately, the data that our census has collected, or the condition that's there in our country is I would say somewhere it's giving us alarming situation. It's not on, it's not the, I would say it's not the concept, but it's an alarming concept, because you can see, you can see on your screen that I've added this slide in my PPT that is telling us about the census, right? So in 1951, there were 946 women or ladies per 1,000 males. Then after few years, it declined little bit declined, and then in 2011 it is 943. So out of 1,000 males, we have got only 943 females. Look, when we talk about this, a sex ratio, we talk about in terms of 1,000. But when we try to calculate it in terms of crores, then it reaches to some other level, and our population is almost crossing 1.3 billion. It's almost more than 130 crores. So you can imagine that if in terms of 1,000 male, it's according to 2011 census, if it's 943, then you can imagine that if you're going to calculate this in terms of 1,000 male, sorry, in terms of crores of male, then the figures are going to shock us. And unfortunately, we have not good records as far as sex ratio is all about. All right, so look, the condition can be like this. You can see on your screens. Look, we have got a number of males, but only two females as far as this figure is concerned. And if we will not, try to find out the solutions to these things, then the situation can also goes to this level. Look at that. All there are a lot of males and there is only one female, right? So we have to avoid this situation, and it's going to happen with a collective effort. Community has to change its mindset. Our society has to change its mindset, right? Because it is something that is more related to our mindset. And um, and it's very unfortunate. I mean, I can't say much about this, but as a sociologist, it's important for us to understand the grave situation that is right now in our nation, and we have to change it, right? We have to increase the number of females, by creating awareness in the public. That's very important. So after the sex ratio concept, we're going to understand life expectancy. Now look at that. Life expectancy is the number of years a person is going to live, and this is what life expectancy is all about. And look at it is there on your screen. Look at the life expectancy in India. It is according to 2015 or 16 records. So male lives up to 68.5 years, and female 64.2 years. So this is the the recent data that I've added in this PPT. And remember that 68 years of time period is a longer period. Don't worry about that. And in case if you are still worried by seeing these figures, then I've got something positive and something good to show you. Look at the life expectancy of Kerala. It's 75, and look at the life expectancy in Assam. It's 64. So life expectancy also has a lot of variations, just like our culture has a lot of variations, right? So life expectancy means number of years that an individual is going to live, right? So it varies from states to state. And look at the data of life expectancy in terms of our state, Jammu and Kashmir. It's 72.6. All right. So remember that life expectancy is something that is I think in our hands. How can I say this? Because we do regular exercise and take good diet, and we have good nutritional diet, I would say, then we are always going to live more. So life expectancy is something that I can say it's there in our hands. So this is what I wanted to discuss with you about life expectancy, right? Okay. So okay, after life expectancy, we're going to understand the population age structure. Look, when I say population age structure, we have divided our population into three different groups. So from 0 to 14, all the children come in this category. Then the second age group, right from 15 to 64. Then after that, we have overage, or I would say elder population. Sorry to say overage, but definitely elder population, who are aged above 65. So we have got three kind of groups that tells us about the population, age structure of our country, right? And look, it's very important to understand this population age structure, because through this we can understand different things. Like we can understand dependency ratio, and through this population age structure we're going to understand dependency ratio, and then we're going to also understand about the demographic dividend. These are the two concepts that are related to understanding of population age structure. So now we're going to discuss these two concepts, right? Now dependency ratio. When I say dependency ratio, then just try to understand the first age group, that is between 0 to 14, and the last age group, that is third age group, over 65. They are actually dependent on our population aged between 50 and 64. So the middle group is something that is carrying the burden of first group, and that is carrying the burden of the third group as well. So how we calculate dependency ratio? Dependency ratio can be calculated. You can see on your screen that number of dependents. Now dependents, when I say dependents, then it hints about group 1 and group 3. So all those people who come in group 1 and group 3 are going to come as numerator, and in denominator we're going to keep the working population, the middle group, the second group, the group that that has the age range from 15 to 64. So that's how we calculate our dependency ratio. But for understanding dependency ratio, I think it's important for all of us to understand the age structure, right? That's why I was focusing so much on age structure, right? We're gonna have our class now. We're gonna have our class about 4-5 minutes more, and let's see how many topics or how many concepts we can cover in this in these 5 minutes, right? Now, demographic dividend. You can see on your screen that demographic dividend is actually a positive condition, right? And how can we say that it is a positive condition? Look, demographic dividend is the benefit a country gets when its working population outgrows its dependents, such as children and old age, right? So demographic dividend is a condition. Look, demographic dividend is a condition when we're going to have more working population than the non-working population, right? So we're going to have, when we're going to have less non-working population and more working population, it's going to give you a condition of demographic dividend. Demographic dividend is a very good condition. There, there is a less burden on working population. So I'm sure now you have understood many concepts like demographic dividend. Then I'm sure you have understood dependency ratio. Then I'm sure you have understood population age structure. Now I'm sure you have understood life expectancy. And I've also provided you data, some recent data, and obviously of different states. Now I'm sure, and obviously as far as our whole India is concerned, I've provided you that as well. And I've also told you the sex ratio and how the condition can turn out forbidden, God forbidden. I would say, uh, I mean, this should not be happen. I think we should try to understand this alarming indicator in the form of sex ratio, declining sex ratio. We're going to understand about declining sex ratio further in this chapter. We're going to understand, as a sociologist, we're going to understand the causes and what are the consequences or ramifications that it is posing to us. It's a pretty grave a situation, and we got to understand this. And I'm sure you have understood this sex ratio as well. I'm sure you understood MMR, maternal mortality rate. I'm sure you have understood IMR, infant mortality rate. Mortality is something that is related to death. So infant mortality means death of young children, which age from 0 to 2, or before 1 year. I'm talking about infants, right? So the death of them, and then obviously maternal mortality rate, death of mothers, right? Who give birth to the children or during their pregnancy or post-pregnancy. They are always prone to dangerous situations. So MMR or IMR can also happen. Then I'm sure you have understood total fertility rate, that average number of children which would have been birthed by women during his fertility life years, 15 to 49. I'm sure you have understood, yes, total fertility rate. And I'm sure you have understood specific fertility rate. Specific fertility rate, the difference between specific fertility rate and total fertility rate is that, specific fertility rate can be understood sometimes in groups and sometimes as a, specific age, women also. But total fertility rate is always understood as a specific fertility of a woman. And I'm sure now you have understood general fertility rate, that mm, in which we include all the women who are having age around 15 to 49. I'm sure you have understood this as well. I'm sure you have understood death rate. I'm sure you have understood general birth rate. And I'm sure you have understood the importance of importance of demography, and how it gives emergence to sociology. And sociology obviously gives a lot of credit to emergence of demography, or gives a lot of credit to demography. I'm sure you have understood this. I'm sure you have understood these two types of demography as well. And I'm sure you have understood what is demography. And it has been derived from two Greek words, demos and graphene, right? People and demos means people, and graphene means describe. So description of people is all about demography. It's what all about demography. And I'm sure you have understood many things out of this session. And I think we should now stop, because I'm already running out of time. So kindly message me, hurry up. I want to take your reviews. Have you understood? Uh, you know. So kindly message me in the chat box. I really want to know, have you understood or not? Because your doubts are of paramount importance. Remember that. Okay. And look, I'm gonna send you, the video also. I'm gonna send you the PPT also, right? So I'm gonna send both the things. I'm gonna post these two things in the group, right? So I don't want my students to worry about, writing or missing anything, because we tend to lose our focus. We tend to lose our concentration in the class. And I want all of my students to be extremely vigilant in the class, right? I want your attention right there in the class. Okay. So I'm going to give you my PPT. I'm going to give you this video. So you're going to have ample time to write the important key points from this PPT, right? Okay. So I'm stopping this share of PPT. Okay. Let me read your messages. Okay. I'm sure you have enjoyed the class, and I'm sure we have got most of this class. Okay, so it's time to say goodbye, and it's time to say goodbye. Stay safe, and stay at your home. And I would say that God bless you all. I'm sure you have enjoyed the class, and I think we have learned something. And this is what e-learning is all about: electronic learning, right? And until then, take care all. Goodbye. Bye bye. Okay.